All right, so here goes my video for chapter 12 of Calm My Anxious Heart. It's trusting God with the whys. And I didn't get this done before I went to go pick up George. He's actually in the next room sleeping, resting peacefully, and graduation was great. The spouses seminar was great. We're actually leaving Kansas City here in about a week, next Tuesday. So things are happening quickly now, and time just got away from me from getting this video made when I wanted to get it made. But that's okay. It's the perfect timing, right? What happens is always the perfect timing. So this chapter is trusting God with the whys. And the author does a really great little treatise on the book of Habakkuk in this chapter. And so I kind of wanted to focus on that a little bit. Habakkuk is my favorite minor prophet. I know that it's kind of weird to say that you maybe have a favorite minor prophet, but we did a study on these a few years back, and I really grew to enjoy the complexity of Habakkuk and the trust that he has in God. And it's different than the other minor prophet books where God is telling the prophet something to tell to the people. Habakkuk is just a discussion between Habakkuk and God alone, and just a conversation that Habakkuk wanted to have with him about what he saw going on in the world around him. He lived in Judah and saw that the people were being evil, and he wanted God to punish the evil that he saw in the people of Judah around him. In Habakkuk chapter 1 verse 3, it says, "Why do you make me see iniquity, and why do you idly look at wrong?" And so he had some whys for God, and he was not afraid of asking God why, and taking his problems to God and asking why. And one thing that I've been learning a lot about my anxiety lately is that sometimes I'm unfair to George. I don't filter my whys through God first, and so I bring George a lot of problems that he can't fix. I mean, he wants to fix the anxieties in my life, but some things only God can fix. But I tend to go to George first and have him be my security blanket before I actually go to God with my problems. And so I'm learning to go to God with my problems and have him be my security blanket. And sometimes that filters out the things, whether it's just through my thought process or a scripture that God will give me, but it filters out those things that George can't fix, so that when I do come to George with my problems, that he can be a comfort and he can be a help, and he doesn't feel helpless in helping me solve the problems that I have. So that's one thing that I've been learning a lot about lately. And Habakkuk was not afraid to take God his whys. And what happened was he talked to God about, like, why are all these people around me doing evil and you're not doing anything about it? And God's answer actually made a bigger problem. Like, God said, the Chaldeans, more commonly known as the Babylonians, they'll be coming and they'll take care of the evil of Judah. And Habakkuk was like, wait, no, that's an even bigger problem than what I wanted to know. Now we're going to have these people invading us. But one thing I learned about this, is even though God's answer caused what Habakkuk thought was a bigger problem, it brought up the issue of trust. And so in chapter 2, verse 1, Habakkuk says, I will take my stand at my watched post and station myself on the tower. I will look out to see what he will say to me, and what I will answer concerning my complaint. So Habakkuk brought God his initial problem. God answered, and it seemed to create an even bigger problem. So instead of starting to complain even more, he asked God why again, and just positioned himself to wait for God's answer again. And she writes here, it's on the bottom of page 191 if you're reading the same version of the book I am. It says, some people believe God doesn't speak to us today as he did long ago. I disagree. The truer statement is that we don't listen and wait as Habakkuk did, which I believe is very true. So Habakkuk positioned himself to listen and wait for God's answer again. And God didn't explain why. Instead, God asked or told Habakkuk to trust him with his whys. Because we may never know the answer to some of the things that happen in our lives. I still don't really know why I can't maintain a pregnancy to full term. Still don't necessarily know why I have so much trouble with anxiety, or why different situations lined up in my life the way that they did. But I trust God with those whys, to know that he's faithful. And Habakkuk 2:4 says, the righteous will live by his faith. And that's echoed again in Romans 1:17, in Galatians 3:11, and in Hebrews 10:38. The righteous will live by faith. So one way to trust God with our whys is to remember to ask them, and then to position ourselves to wait. And he may not give us that exact answer that we want, but he will, how do I say this? He will teach us more about his character in those waiting times. We'll learn more about him through scripture, and we'll just begin to know and learn that he's faithful, and that we can trust him whatever comes. And to echo what Habakkuk says at the end of his book, Habakkuk chapter 3, verses 16 through 19. It says, I hear and my body trembles. My lips quiver at the sound. Rottenness enters into my bones. My legs tremble beneath me. Yet I will quietly wait for the day of trouble to come upon people who will invade us. So he knows that the Babylonians are going to invade, and he says he will quietly wait for the day of trouble to come upon them. So they're coming, but also their day of trouble will come. And he says, though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, the produce of the olive fail, and the fields yield no food, the flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls. He knew the disposition of the Babylonians and their reputation. He knew things were going to get bad. He says in verse 18, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. God, the Lord, is my strength. He makes my feet like the deer's. He makes me to tread on my high places. And those makes my feet like the feet of a deer's, and makes me tread on my high places. She mentions here in the book that it's like he'll be jumping for joy and twirling around in excitement. He said those things even before the invasion happened, and even before the day of trouble came upon the invaders. So it's very important to me. to think about. It still hadn't even come yet he was already at peace with what was going to happen, which is what I'm taking into our military life. I know it's going to be hard at times, and I pray that I can still have this mindset years down the road, that whatever comes, that I will live by faith in what I know about God, and knowing that even though his answer may even cause more trouble than what I was originally asking why about, that all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord, for those who are called according to his purpose. And that's Romans 8:28. So thank you for watching. Those of you who have watched these videos, I just pray they've been helpful, and I pray that they'll be helpful to me as I look back on them in the future. Thanks a lot. Bye.